Hello everybody, this is Danny
and Wanda
from Deep South Homestead. Wanda has been after me for quite some time to do a series, and I guess it's been about 6 months.
At least
6 months to do this particular series, and I have been putting it off for one reason or another.
We've just been busy, and it just never has been the right time.
Never has been the right time, that's right.
But now it is.
Now it is. The title of the series that we're wanting to do here at Deep South Homestead is How to Reach Financial Freedom on a Homestead. Now, the way we're going to go at this...
Yeah, the way we're going to do this is going to be different.
It's going to be different than what anything I think you've ever seen, because we've put a lot of thought into this. And I'm not sure how it's going to be taken, but we're going to do it regardless.
Because that's who we are.
Because it's just who we are. That's right. And what we're going to do here is we're going to start off with first understanding something about financial freedom. Financial freedom is your ability to be financially free is going to be based on how you were raised. That's not to say that you cannot become financially free, but how you were raised as a small child plays a huge part in your mental part of becoming financially free.
And you can overcome that.
Yes.
Lots of people do. But things that were introduced to you in the first, say, 5 years of your life, that's in you forever. You can overcome some things, and that's okay. But we're talking, some of that plays a huge part in what motivates you or doesn't motivate you the rest of your life.
Yeah. So to start this series off, we're going to start off with childhood.
The first, say, 5, 6, 7 years.
The first, up to you start to school.
Yeah.
Because that plays a huge factor.
Yes, every mother knows that she plays a huge part in her child's life, and the father too.
Yes.
But the mother, I'm coming at it as a mother, so y'all forgive me. If you're a father, that's okay.
That's okay.
But as a mother, I know the first few years of my child's life, I made a huge impression on them, whether it was good or bad. So my childhood was different from Danny's.
Yes.
We had some similarities, but we had some differences. And my father worked he worked a job and came home. He was out early every morning, home at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She never worked during my time at home.
My father was, I guess, what you call an entrepreneur. He owned his own business. He didn't work for anybody else. My dad was, he was two things when I was a small child. He was a pulpwooder who cut pulpwood, and he owned a small engine repair business at our home. My mother, like Wanda said her mother was, my mother was a stay-at-home mom. She stayed at home with all the kids when we were young. She did not go out and work.
And as a very young child, I remember playing in the yard. We had a block house on 1 acre. We had a garden. At one point, or at several points, I should say, we had a pig, and we raised the pig on the property, and we had meat from that. But we bought a lot from the grocery store. I do remember that. But my mom cooked. She did home cooked meals for breakfast, lunch, and supper. And yes, we had cereal when cereal became popular. I do remember that. But for the most part, my mom cooked the meals, and we raised a good portion of what we had.
And I guess along those same lines, in my family, where Wanda and them lived in town, we did not live in town. We lived in the country. The old house was a drafty old house. Kind of hard to keep warm, but we did it anyway. The kitchen was kind of separate from the house. It was one of those old homes. It was like the kitchen was separate from the house. And some of you older people who's here will understand what I'm talking about. Outside the back of this old house, we had a pig pen in the backyard. My dad had a pig. We had a few chickens. We had no well. We had to, Dad had to bring water home from town. So my life coming up as a small child was somewhat different than what Wanda's was. Now, my mom cooked. She provided good meals for us. We had a garden. My dad had 3 acres at that time. And on that 3 acres, we raised, a pretty big garden. There was a lot of canning went on during that time. And this is how we survived on our little home place there. Was during the day, us kids would help Mom in the garden. And you have to understand, I'm the oldest child in my family.
And I'm also the oldest in my family.
Those of you who are oldest kids in your family, you'll realize that sometimes, it just happens this way. That
More
when you're
responsibility. The older child helps with the younger children. The parents, and I know I did this with my children too. You always depend on the oldest child to help do things faster than the younger ones do.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more responsibility with the oldest child.
They are, and it seems like the older children seem to mature much faster. And not to say that anything about the other kids, but it just seems like Wanda said there was more responsibility placed on it.
Yes, usually. I was the oldest in my family, and I kind of remember a few things that happened up to that point. My mom made our clothes. She made my clothes up till I was in high school, really. I bought some of my first clothes in high school, but as a young child, our clothes were made, and we never thought anything of it because that's what people did back then. The moms made the clothes.
That's right.
She always had snacks and things for us. We didn't have the Cokes and the candy bars and the chips and the snacks. That was not something that we had all the time. But I do remember my dad would call on a Friday afternoon when he got paid. He would call before he came home because you didn't run back to town.
No,
there was no
going back to town.
My mom didn't drive at this point. My mom did not start driving until I was in the 3rd grade. So my mom did not drive. We stayed home all day, every day. But my dad would call and he would say, he would talk to each one of us. There was 4 kids individually, asked us what we wanted, and he would bring us home a candy bar and a Coke. Whatever kind of candy bar you wanted, whatever kind of Coke. That was our treat, like once a month. So we didn't have treats every day, all day. We had to do with what we had.
Yeah.
And we got a treat. And I can remember as far as Christmas, we didn't get toys all year long. We got something on our birthday and something at Christmas. And you didn't dare ask for toys or anything if you went to town, which we made very little trips to town either.
As a child, I remember the kind of food that we had was things that was raised right there on the homestead. We did not go to town to get things on a regular basis. My dad, when he come home, would bring things from town, like a block of dry ice, because that's what we used to keep things cold with on our home. We did not have a lot of the luxuries that other people had when I was a kid. Mom would always have something cooked that was from the homestead there. Now, we did not go to the store. We did not have snacks and candies and stuff like that. Mom would occasionally make some goodies, we called it. You got one thing. Mm-hmm. You got one thing only, and you had to make it last, because when it ran out, there just wasn't any going back to the store. Yeah. And as kids, when we went outside to play, Mom shut the door behind us, and that's what we did. We stayed outside. We didn't stay inside and bother Mom.
We didn't run in and out the door either.
That's right. There was no going in and out doors, slamming doors and stuff like that. When you went outside, if you went outside at, say, 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning, you didn't come back in the house until it was time to eat at dinner. Yeah. Now, I know people in the city could be a little bit different, but I'm talking about how I was raised in the country.
Yeah.
Now, that's two different completely lifestyles. What we're trying to do here is tell you about the differences in our childhoods and how we came up.
How it brings us to how we came to financial freedom now, because with that kind of background,
yeah,
Danny and I went through several roads to get here. Mm-hmm. And we're going to discuss in the next series our teenage years, but from the type childhood we had, we draw on that now. That's what we use.
We draw
now
on our childhood now, because like Christmas, like Wanda mentioned about Christmas. See, at Christmas and birthdays, like Wanda was talking about, you got one gift.
Yes.
Let me say you got one main gift.
And and maybe one or two
and then
small
you get some small things. Like 1 year, we got a swing set. Mm-hmm. That was
like for Christmas.
Mm-hmm. And that was for all of us kids in the family.
And then you might have got underwear and maybe a yo-yo or something.
We got some apples. Mom would always have some apples, some oranges, some bananas, Brazil nuts, pecans. A few things like that are the kind of things that we got for Christmas. There wasn't a bunch of these little battery-operated toys, because that stuff didn't really exist.
Yeah, and we got games. And so the games were for all of us. There was 4 of us. You didn't get everybody got their own thing. If Mom was going to buy a game, it was all 4 of us got that game together and played together. And we played board games a lot. We learned how to communicate with each other because of it. And I think that plays a part.
It does. Social skills. It teaches you social skills, getting along with your siblings.
And that plays a part in how we react now. We look back on how we were raised. By being in a frugal family, my mother was very frugal. She did not blow a lot of money. And she showed us how to look nice, dress nice, and eat well on a very minute budget. And she raised us that way. So I know how to do that, and I raise my children that way. So now we bring it into our marriage.
We do. And like Wanda mentioned a while ago, my mother made all of our clothes. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that back then you just did not go to a store and buy all your clothes. A mother would go to the store and she looked for the fabric department.
Yes. I've spent many a day because my mom was a seamstress.
Your mother was a seamstress. I remember you talking to me about that.
She made clothes for other people, not only for us, but she made for other people. She sewed for the public. That's the way she had her money. So I learned that skill too, that a woman did not have to have a job outside the home, but she can find a way to make money. Because my mom made money all through the years doing that. And she was a stay-at-home mom, but she made money. So that taught me that I could do that too.
That was a skill that mothers had back then, because every store it would be a fabric store in every town where we were at. You go in and they just have these bolts of fabric, and when Mom went to town, she's going to go by the fabric store and she's going to go and look at the different fabrics and see what's available and what kind of prices was there, because she knew she was going to have to make some clothes for the family. And,
And too, the deal with us, I do remember this. My mom made clothes. We got 3 or 4 times a year. We had 2 revivals at the church, one in the spring and one in the fall. We actually got a new dress in the spring, a new dress in the fall. Mm. She made us a new dress for Christmas, always. And then probably our birthday, we got a new dress. So 4 times a year, I got a dress. The rest of the time, you just wore the same dresses over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You did not have, there was no going to a secondhand store.
Well, there weren't any.
People didn't, if I wore my dress very long and I couldn't wear it,
your sister
got it.
Yes.
And then when she outgrew it, my next sister got it.
Yeah.
Because there was 3 girls.
If you wore a pair of pants, Mama didn't wash them, because my mama had to wash by hand. We didn't have a washing machine. And Mama would make us, if we're going to go out in the yard and get dirty, we wore those same pants 2 or 3 times. And I know that sounds horrible, but when a mother has to can and she has to prepare for the family and cook all day and tend to little ones and stuff like that. Being a boy, Mama said, you're just going to get them dirty anyway, and I would wear the same pants maybe 2 to 3 days because Mama just didn't have time.
As a young boy, yeah.
As a young boy, Mama had to wash a lot, and I can remember my mama one time crying, sitting down, literally crying. She had spent all day washing clothes, and she'd hung them up on a clothesline, and back then, people had a stick that they would pick up the middle of the clothesline with to hold it up. And us kids was running around playing out in the yard, and I ran by and grabbed one of the towels hanging on the clothesline and jerked it. Just being a kid. And when I did, the whole clothesline broke and fell on the ground, and the clothes fell right in the dirt. And they were still wet. And Mama come running out there, and I remember her sitting down on the porch just crying.
Yeah, because she knew all that work was...
It was just gone, you know. And because we didn't have a washing machine, she knew she had to sit down and rewash all those clothes. And plus, I had to help her rewash all those clothes by hand. In order to turn it, you have to understand what kind of mentality a kid has growing up as to what he sees or she sees as a child will determine how she looks at life in the future. For me now, being older, I can look back and I realize I remember things that my family done.
And he puts a lot of that into practice because when he was young, they did not have the money to do a lot of things. So even though he has worked throughout the years, now he's looking back and he's going, okay, what did we do as a child that I can possibly incorporate now?
Yeah.
And that's how we save money lots of times, is looking back to the things we remember our parents doing as a child. We might not have paid any attention at that point.
We paid more attention than we thought we did.
We remember.
We remember. Yeah.
And we remember what they did each day. We remembered them cooking every day. Well, that saved money.
We remember our grandparents and how our parents and our grandparents done things. I mean, when we were little tiny kids, up to 5 years old, say, preschool age, I well remember the garden would be picked. And we had a big front porch across the old house that we lived in, the old drafty house. And Grandma and Grandpa would come over, and everybody would sit down, and I'm sure Wanda and them went through the same thing. Family got together, everybody shelled beans, we shucked corn, you know, we picked peanuts off, and we done whatever we had to do.
And my dad was always working, so it was up to my mom.
Yep.
But my grandmother lived next door for a long time, and that would be my daddy's mom. And she would come over, and whatever we were doing was shelling peas or whatever. We had a big mimosa tree with a tire swing in it, and we couldn't play in that tree. We'd have to sit under it and shell. But we would sit down and shell, and when we finished, even at 5 years old, we had to shell.
Yes.
We were not allowed to get up and go play. And granted, my granny would give my little sister a little bitty, like a cup. My next sister got like a pie pan. I got the big, it was like a dish pan, but it wasn't quite as big as a dish pan. But my granny had the big dish pan, and Mom would have a big dish pan. So it was age appropriate for each kid. But my baby sister at 2 and 3 years old would sit there and play with those peas. She might mash a bunch of them, but she would shell until she got that little cup full.
She wanted to be like her big sister. She would sit and try to shell. The same thing with our family. Our family would sit there. Everybody would, we would all sit and shell. You were given something that was equal to your proportion. Now, it would be foolish to give a small child a big bowl. We were given
like a dish pan.
Like a dish pan. We were given smaller. The smaller the kid, the smaller the thing, so that they felt like there was a sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
And that way, everybody was a partaker in it. And when the task was done, then the kids could go play.
Yes, and of course, when my little sister got through and she filled her little cup, she got to go play. Well, my other sister and I had bigger things, but we shelled faster.
Yeah.
It didn't take us too much longer to finish our bowls than it did my little sister, and we could get up and go play. And Mom and Granny would finish. We did not necessarily stay all day long with them, but we did help.
This is one of the skills that we're trying to tell you all about that gave us the mentality as a small child to to know what it takes to work toward financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Because unless you've had some sort of training as a small child, it makes it difficult the older you get to know what it means to be financially free.
Because one thing that stands out in my mind from my childhood would be that we had to wait for gratification.
That delayed gratification.
Yes.
That Wanda hit the nail on the head with that one.
Gratification. We were taught that you did not get what you wanted immediately.
Right.
Ever.
You never got what you wanted right away. Never.
If we wanted ice cream, Daddy'd say, well, let me get the garbage on the back of the truck. I'll go to the dump and we'll swing by the store and get ice cream.
But that was usually like a Saturday.
It was on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And it would be like once every 6 months because Mom would we didn't have a lot of trash because we didn't
people
buy.
back then burned their garbage.
Yeah, we burned.
You burnt the garbage and any of the glass and stuff, and old tin cans and stuff that was left over from burning the garbage.
Yeah.
Then that was hauled to a landfill that was just in the country somewhere.
And so Daddy would pile up the cans in bags and on the back.
And in the back of an old truck. It seems like we all had an old truck.
And this truck never went anywhere except to the garbage.
To the garbage dump. Yes.
That was it. Yes. And so he would make us sit inside till we got to the garbage dump. He'd let us get out and get on the back of the truck when he cleaned it. We'd stop by the store and get ice cream and eat ice cream on the back of the truck, standing up over the hood, watching the wind blow in our face as we went home. Okay, things have changed.
Things have changed a lot. Yeah, but of course now back then he's on an old country road. You're probably going about 10 miles an hour. It wasn't like everybody. The
truck didn't go much faster.
It didn't go. Yeah, because it's just an old truck. But life is just different now,
Yes.
And these are things as older adults that we look back on and we glean from, and it makes us
proud to be able to
do what
hit
we do.
the things we do because.
Well, back then people were looked at. Let me tell you something. People look at people back then as being extremely poor.
Yeah.
But you know what?
They were rich.
They were rich.
Very
because
rich.
they weren't bound down financially.
Yes.
By all the gadgets in the world. The kids wasn't sitting around, on something like this. The kids were out running and playing in the yard. They were doing what children were born to do. And their minds were maturing and being creative. They built forts. They played cowboy and Indians. Girls played with dolls. They made little forts and they built roads with little trucks and stuff like this.
We built straw houses.
Straw houses, yes. Different things like that. The kids' minds developed. And it seems like today, maybe we don't have that today. I don't know.
But, that's where we're going with this series. Okay? We've talked a little about our childhood.
Yeah.
And what happened in our childhood. Everybody's childhood is different. Nobody has the same. And you have to glean from your childhood what you can bring to the table as an adult.
Yes.
And ours was the delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification and frugal living.
Yeah. And so Danny and I both got a good dose of that.
Yes, we did.
And as being the oldest of our families, the oldest child, that helped a lot. And so next time we're going to take you along on what it's like to be a teenager.
Okay, until the next part of how to reach financial freedom on a homestead based on your teenage years from Deep South Homestead, thank you.
Goodbye.